Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. There is a lot of conversation around this Auburn program heading into 2025, not only among Auburn fans with Hugh Freeze going into year three, the expectation for him to probably put it together in 2025. I think just as importantly, the national media has caught on to the talent level that this Auburn roster has going into 2025. You are seeing some way too early top 25 rankings that have Auburn in the top 15. And the fun conversation about Auburn is the ceiling of this football team going into 2025. There's no question in my mind that it's top 15 caliber. Now, what needs to happen for Auburn to reach that ceiling? That's the conversation I want to get into, but I want to make no mistake about it. You look at this Auburn team and you start talking about, all right, what if the chips fall the right way for Auburn? You're looking at a dangerous team, not only in the landscape of the SEC, this is a dangerous team in the college football playoff landscape as well. It all needs to come together, though. And that's what we're going to talk about before we get into it. As always, so the Auburn fans would love to hear how y'all are feeling about this program, this roster going into 2025. Because I see a lot of Auburn fans, you rarely get this, but I see a lot of Auburn fans saying, hey, Auburn is ranked too high going into 2025. So would love to hear from you guys. The amount of support many of y'all showing the boys over the last really year and a half as we've talked to Hugh Freeze tenure, it's been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's start with what is by far the biggest piece of the puzzle, and that is Jackson Arnold. And I've been very vocal that I give Hugh Freeze just the tip of the cap, a ton of credit in terms of going out and getting a quarterback that, look, there were safer options in the transfer portal. You look at Jackson Arnold, we all know how talented this kid is, but from what we've seen from him on the football field, it hasn't necessarily been great. But Hugh Freeze looks at Jackson Arnold, said, all right, you're coming from an Oklahoma offense as a sophomore quarterback, right? This is still a young quarterback that is developing, was thrown into the SEC with Oklahoma in 2024 with what was, in my money, the worst offensive line we saw in the conference, the worst pass catchers when the pass catchers started to go down, and they couldn't run the football. This was an offense that I don't know how many quarterbacks could have success in Norman, Oklahoma in the 2024 year. And so I think a lot of people are very quick to write Jackson Arnold off. Yeah, we haven't necessarily seen him play great football as a college football quarterback yet. But I think Hugh Freeze says, hey, well, if we're Auburn, like, our goal, and we know we have a roster that can compete at the highest level of the SEC, let's go bet on a quarterback that can maximize this roster. Look, Hugh Freeze, could have made the safe move and gotten a guy like Caden Salter. He decided to kind of swing big, and not a lot of coaches do that. Credit for Hugh Freeze for doing it. Now, the other thing I love about what Auburn did is, hey, we're going to bet on Jackson Arnold, and yeah, that's what Hugh Freeze is doing. Hugh Freeze is betting his tenure on the performance of Jackson Arnold, at least in my opinion. Look, if Jackson Arnold does not work out in 2025, Auburn does not win a lot of football games. I don't know if we're seeing 2026 for Hugh Freeze. I think a lot of Auburn fans probably agree with that. And so he's betting his tenure on Jackson Arnold, that quarterback, but he created what I think is just a juggernaut offense around him. You start with the pass catchers. I mean, Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, I don't know how many wide receiver duos you're taking over those two. I love Malcolm Simmons. I mean, Cam Coleman got all the media hype because he was that five-star coming in. Malcolm Simmons, an electric factory with the football in his hands. You had Perry Thompson going into year two. We all know how talented he is. Horatio Fields coming from Wake Forest, just a really solid wide receiver that is trending in the right direction coming from Wake. This wide receiver, I don't think it's crazy to say it's arguably a top 5 wide receiver room in the country, and arguably the best wide receiver room that you see in the SEC. Then you look at the offensive line. You go out and land Xavier Chaplin, who I think was one of the best tackles that was available in this transfer portal window. You get Dylan Wade to come back, hopefully stays at left guard this year. Connor Lewis center. That left side of the offensive line, I think, very good. And then you have a bunch of what I'd say is experience on the right side. And that's kind of where I'm looking at in fall camp or spring practice, I should say. How does that come together? Mason Murphy, a guy that's played a lot of football, but I don't think it's always been starting caliber SEC level play. You have guys like Xavier Miller, Jeremiah Wright. I do like Brandon Joyner a lot. You might be able to throw in a guy like DeAndre Carter as well. There's a lot of capable bodies. Does that right side of the offensive line hold up? Now, this is an offensive line that's built to road grade. As much as Mason Murphy might struggle in pass protection a little bit, can move bodies off the line of scrimmage. This should be a good run game, and you do lose Jarquez Hunter. I think there's a lot of confidence. Jeremiah Cobb, Damari Alston, I know they really like that UConn back they got in the portal as well. The run game should be there. The pass catchers certainly are there. Is the offensive line good enough in pass protection? I think it very well could be. I think it's a unit that if you're looking at this depth chart in early January, say, got a lot of confidence in the unit. This offense is ready-made to be success for Jackson Arnold to have success, which is something you just could not say for Jackson Arnold in 2024. I've made this comp a lot. The Auburn fans, I'm sure, have heard it. Like, it's kind of like the reverse of Bo Nix. Bo Nix, we thought talented quarterback. People wrote him off because he didn't have a ton of success at Auburn. Well, it turned out to be was a lot more about the staff and the players around Bo Nix than Bo Nix as a player. He goes to Oregon, lights it up, goes to the NFL, looks like one of the better young rookie quarterbacks that we saw in 2024. Can that be the story for Jackson Arnold? Because if that is the story, you make no mistake about it. This Auburn team, top 15, yes, maybe even top 3. And we could be talking about Jackson Arnold being a top 3 quarterback in this conference. That's what excites me the most is the seal that this is probably the team that probably has the highest variance. Like, it could go very, very well. And when I say very well, it's like 10 plus wins, dangerous college football playoff team. That's the ceiling for me. And then the lows are probably pretty low as well. Now, you look at the defense. I think there's a lot of confidence in this defense. I mean, one thing that Hugh Freeze has quietly done, and everybody wants to talk about Hugh Freeze offense, he is starting to stack bodies on this line of scrimmage. And you look at Keldrick Falk, nobody talked about it, was one of the better defensive linemen that we saw in the SEC last year. Now, to me, the story here is, what does Amaris Williams look like in year 2? What is Kieran? Well, we kind of know what Kieran Crawford is. The bigger story to me is Amaris Williams. And then secondly, the young defensive lineman in the middle of the defensive line stepping up, whether that's Malik Autry, whether that's Jordan Crawford, whether that's Antonio Coleman, they're all going to be, or at least I'm betting my money that they're all going to be solid players at some point for Auburn. Are they good enough to play and contribute in a depth manner in 2025? That's the big storyline. Because you look at it and say, all right, we got some confidence in Malik Blackton. We got some confidence in Dallas Walker coming over from Western Kentucky as just being a solid football player. The depth on the inside of the defensive line is probably the question that you have. If you can get 2 out of 3 of those young freshmen being capable bodies that can play 15 to 20 snaps a game, all of a sudden you don't have a ton of question marks about the depth. But that's kind of what needs to happen for Auburn if they're going to reach their ceiling. Number 3, DeMarcus Riddick, All-American. I know that's lofty expectations. I think this kid is very capable of being that game-changing off-ball linebacker that can do so many different things. Look, we're in a new era of college football. Gone are the days where we have these 255-pound bruiser linebackers. It's just not where college football is right now. You need freaky athletes at the linebacker spot to go tackle running backs in the flat, carry tight ends up the seam, spy really mobile quarterbacks, of which you're going to see plenty of in the SEC. DeMarcus Riddick has all that athleticism to be that kind of game changer. He's a guy that you can get awfully creative with too, whether you're going to blitz him off the edge, blitz him in the A and B gap. The ceiling is so high for DeMarcus Riddick, and you feel like you're having that conversation of what does the ceiling look like for Auburn in 2025 as a football team. You feel like that ceiling includes DeMarcus Riddick stepping up and being a complete difference maker at the off-ball linebacker spot. Last thing I'll talk about, secondary gets better. I think it could. I mean, you bring in Rayan Strader from Miami of Ohio, just a bona fide, really solid boundary cornerback. You love what you saw from Jay Crawford as a freshman. Probably only getting better. I mean, you look at Jay Crawford, a 40% completion percentage, 1 targeted last year as a true freshman. You look at Caleb Harris at the safety spot, very good in coverage, only missed 7% of his tackles. one of the quiet again, there were a lot of storylines for Auburn, good storylines that kind of got overshadowed because of the turnover and quarterback problems that you really like about this team. And I think one of them is the young guys in the secondary really coming in and playing great football for Auburn. There's a lot of that in this Auburn roster. It did feel like Auburn was a difference maker at quarterback away from being very competitive in 2024. Their roster around the quarterback only gets better, in my opinion, going into 2025. Now, can you have that difference maker at quarterback be Jackson Arnold? If it is, like, you better watch out because this Auburn team's going to be really good in 2025. But the Auburn season and really Hugh Freeze's tenure hinges on Jackson Arnold. We'll see how it works out. Going to be by far the most fun storyline to follow for this program in spring practice, in fall camp. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. We are going to, pivot a little bit, get into some more recruiting talk. Auburn's got an elite junior day coming up this weekend. I'm still getting some eyeballs on some of these 2026ers. We'll probably have a breakdown on that Friday night, Saturday morning. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.